First of all, I started using drugs in college, right? Graduated with a degree in banking and finance and a full-fledged addiction. Drugs was real prevalent in the city in the 80s, and I fell into everything negative when I went to college. When I came home, I fell into everything negative and end up, snorting cocaine. And what it did was it destroyed my life. It became unbearable. And it got so bad for me, right, that I ended up in an alley on a 5-day binge of using crack cocaine. Bank was looking for their vehicle because I couldn't afford to pay, my car note. My license had expired. I had no registration on my car. I was $30,000 in debt and basically wanted to, end it all because I couldn't stop. Today I'm coming on 33 years of abstinence from drugs and alcohol. These type of segments you're having now is so important, to get the word out that you can get better. Whatever you're going through, you can get better.
When you finally got out of treatment, Mark, could you have come back to this area, this neighborhood?
That's one thing I learned in treatment. They said you have to change your people, your places, and your things. So I knew I couldn't come back to this negative environment.
Well, what would have happened if you come back here?
Well, I'd have fell right back into the same syndrome, guys, same people that have been around me all the time, and eventually I would have went back and picked up.
Mark Spence hasn't picked up crack or a drink in over 2 years. Now he's using his sobriety as a selling point in convincing landlords to rent out their homes for Oxford houses in good neighborhoods.
Basically what I do is just tell them my story. I tell them that it's because of a neighborhood allowing an Oxford house to be there that allowed me the chance to grow. And now look what I'm doing. And I'm asking you for the same opportunity for people in your area.
Oxford House is everything to me. Without my recovery, I wouldn't be alive.
What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy, Coach Bear, back again for my first Testimony Tuesday episode. And for my first guest, I have my dad, Mark Spence. He's the Director of Outreach for Oxford House for the whole DMV area. Dad, how you doing?
Hey, man, what's going on, brother? Brother Cam.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
So, Dad, first, I'm going to go ahead and explain this segment. So pretty much I'm interviewing successful people in their profession. And it's going to be a testimony. You're pretty much going to tell the people your story, like what adversity you overcame to shape who you are today, kind of give an overview of what you do, and any suggestions at the end for somebody that's pursuing your profession. So I'm going to just get started with my first question. You can go ahead and tell the people where you're from.
Okay. Well, I'm a native Washingtonian, born and raised in Washington, D.C. in 1960. I was born in a hospital called Freeman's Hospital, which is on Howard University's campus, where Dr. Charles Drew did the first blood plasma at. I'm pretty proud of that, over in the Bloomingdale area of Washington, D.C. I was raised Catholic and always was part of the baptized in St. Martin's Church in November of 1960. My parents was married in 59. They raised me Catholic, went to Catholic grade school, went to St. Martin's. I was president of the altar boys, and I played basketball and featherball and kickball. I was a great little kid, just want to run around and do the right thing. And I went to grade school with a group of kids. We went to school from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. That was like the Catholic schools.
Oh, wow.
The kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. And, after I graduated from St. Martin's in the 8th grade, I had to choose a high school to go to. So I really wanted to go to this one high school called Mackin Catholic, because one of the local guys in our neighborhood was a really talented basketball player, a dude named JoJo Hunter. Grew up in the neighborhood, and he was such a tremendous basketball player, all these scholarships to college and everything. And I really, I played basketball in grade school. I was pretty good, but I was a little chubby little dude, but I had a lot of fight. I had a lot of fight in me, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And really good kid and just determined and, you know, to try to do the right thing and make great decisions. And, you know, I had the Lord in my life, you know, that's the kind of lifestyle I led, man, making great decisions and wanted to do the right thing. So I decided to go to Mackin Catholic, went to school with 250 all boys school, African American
Wow.
school. Yeah,
Okay.
in the Calorama area of Washington, D.C., which you know, Bezos and the richest man in the world, and Obama lives around the corner from our school. Uh, so I went to school there and met some unbelievable guys there that, you know, was on a path of, you know, making great decisions, wanting to go to college and, you know, and play sports and get as much out of the academics as they could at school and working real hard. And, you know, I ended up making the varsity team my senior year, and we were ranked number 16th in the nation.
Okay.
I was a kind of a bench rider because I'm only 5'8". I'm not like my son;
Yeah.
he's only 6'4". I was 5'8", but I was determined to make that team, and I made the team. And oh my God, we had such a great year that year. We were, I think it was 26-5. So we lost to
Oh
DeMatha
wow.
High School, who was the #1 ranked team in the country by 4 points. And you know, and we played them 3 separate times and lost to them by 4 points. Man, it was so
Oh
sad. But we
wow.
lost. Yeah, we lost the
Yeah, I
Catholic.
lost to the master too.
Yeah, yeah, you sure did. I wanted that so bad because I can't stand the math, just because they're real good. You know,
Yeah.
they promote excellence with the all boy thing. So in high school, it was a great senior year. I ended up graduating number 12th in my class out of 60 guys, and I graduated from a historical Catholic church called St. Matthew's Cathedral. The reason I say it's historical because every time the Pope comes to town from Rome, he actually comes to St. Matthew's Cathedral and say a mass.
Oh
And
wow.
all and also I graduated in 1979, and Marion Barry, who was the mayor of Washington, D.C., mayor for life in Washington, D.C., he actually was the commencement speaker for us. And it was his second year in office. And let me tell you
Okay.
this, he had such a foresight on things in DC and really trying to, you know, help African Americans out. In fact, he started the black middle class. A lot of people don't realize that, you know.
Wow.
And in 1979, he spoke at our graduation and he told us it was 60 African American boys. He was like, man, DC is a beacon on the hill, right? And everybody from
Hmm.
around the world want to come live here. Now, this is the 70s where everything is everything. People with big bushes and, you know, stack heel shoes and, you know what I mean? Just a whole lot of Bammers running around and acting
Yeah.
crazy, you know. But he said DC, and we had all these burnt out buildings in DC because we had the riots in 1968 when Martin Luther King was assassinated. I was like 7.5 years old when Martin Luther King got assassinated, and the city was
Wow.
like on fire, and it just took a long time for it to come back. But we saw a lot of evidence that it was going to get better because the subway came in, you know, when Metro
Hmm.
came in. My senior year, I actually quit the Metro to school a lot, got off at the DuPont Circle exit and walked up to the school. But Marion said, man, DC is going to be a beacon on the hill. So what y'all need to do, you know, you want to create generational wealth. So what you need to do is purchase as many of these houses as you can in Washington, D.C. And, you
Hmm.
know, what we've learned is, you know, when you purchase a home, you know, that's creating wealth for your family. You know,
Hmm.
you buy a home and it, you know, you get equity in a home, and you know, that's money, you know, that's savings for you. So you can you know, have something to rely on later on. So Marion
Hmm.
Barrett was, you know, he told us about that a long time ago. And he was just real educated kind of dude. You know, he also walked with Dr. Martin Luther King back in the day. He was originally
Wow.
from Tennessee. And so that, you know, my experience at Mackin was tremendous. And so when it was time for me to graduate, I always wanted to go to Notre Dame. Always wanted to go to Notre Dame. And but I was 5'8", riding the
Hmm.
bench at Mackin.
It'd
And
have been hard to been a walk on over there.
Yeah, so Notre Dame ain't offered me no scholarship, no money, no acceptance, and nothing. But I was determined to go to a Catholic school, so I found a small liberal arts school called Wheeling Jesuit in Wheeling, West Virginia. It's the same Catholic priest that run Georgetown, University of Dayton, University of San Francisco, you know, Loyola up in Baltimore. The Jesuit colleges are incredible, and got a chance to go there and made the team and ended up getting a scholarship, and I was part of the biggest African American class in the school's history to come in there. Right, it was six of us came in there one time, and it was only 10 African Americans in the whole school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just playing basketball and and learning about other cultures, because they actually had, some of the people that I went to school with had never seen a black or interacted with a black person in person, right? They seen blacks on Soul Train and you know different kind of publications, but they never
Yeah.
really interacted with black guy. And I had like a little mini bush, and they was like, man, let me touch your hair, you know what I mean? What you putting in your hair? I said, I'm putting like grease to make it shine. Like, why you do that? All these questions about my culture. And
Uh-huh.
but I was a real proud black man. I mean, one of the things, I turned them on to go-go music up there, you know,
Yeah.
and let me just say this. I had never used drugs. I never drank a beer. I never even had sex, none of that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff till I went to college, right? And
Mm-hmm.
college kind of, exposed me to a lot of the sinful things that young folks can get into, like the marijuana and the drinking and making very bad decisions. But
Yeah.
I was always, son, I was always disciplined enough
Mm-hmm.
to know to finish up my studies, to do the right thing as best as I
Mm-hmm.
could. And so that's what I did. I fought through, making some better decisions in college, and I ended up graduating with a degree in banking and
Mm-hmm.
finance from Wheeling Jesuit in 1983. I was the 13th African American in the school's history to graduate, and the
Right.
only African American to graduate in 1983.
Wow.
So it was a tremendous accomplishment for little guy that grew up over in Eckington area, Washington, D.C., grew up in a two-bedroom apartment with my parents, my mom and dad, and my sister. And,
Mm-hmm.
we were poor, but I didn't even know we were poor till I went to college.
Yeah.
We, I had a very fruitful and wonderful, upbringing, with my church and my school and my basketball. It was so fulfilling for me, but I didn't even know I was poor. One of the
Mm-hmm.
guys that brought me home one weekend, and he lived in Potomac, Maryland. I never forget this dude named John Shooter. He was like, "Hey man, I'm going home for the weekend, buddy. You want to come with us?" So I jumped in his car and I told him where I lived at. And, as closer we got to the city, he was just like, wow, the city is really different. He lived in
Mm-hmm.
Potomac, Maryland, where all the big houses there is and the Fortune 500 people. And he ended up pulling on my street where like my street was like all apartments where I grew up at, right? And he was like, my
Mm-hmm.
nickname is Bear. He's like, Bear,
Mm-hmm.
grew up around here? I said, I sure did.
Yeah. So
So,
going back to the I wanted to branch off. So going back to you was talking about the culture, and I know you grew up in, the vicious crack cocaine epidemic. That's why I kind of wanted to get into our next question.
okay.
Pretty much, what adversity did you go through and overcome to help shape who you are today? Because I know the story, but everybody else doesn't know the story. So I wanted to see if you could touch on that.
Okay, well, first of all, started using drugs in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Graduated with a degree in banking and finance and a full-fledged addiction. So this was in the 80s. Drugs
Mm-hmm.
was real prevalent in the city in the 80s, and I fell into everything negative when I went to college. When I came home, I fell into everything negative and end up, snorting cocaine and then I got introduced to crack cocaine in 1987. And And what it did was it destroyed my life, because at one time I was a member of the Army Reserves. I had a little part-time job. I worked for an investment firm in Georgetown, and all I was doing was using drugs and staying up all night long. And it became, it became unbearable. And it had got so bad for me, right, that I ended up losing two of the jobs, and ended up in an alley on a 5-day binge of using crack cocaine, where the my vehicle that I had, actually the bank owned it, right? The bank was looking for their vehicle because I couldn't afford to pay, my car note. My license had expired. I had no registration on my car. I was $30,000 in debt. And this was
Mm,
1988, December the 9th, 1988. I ended up in an alley and basically wanted to, end it all because I couldn't stop. And so what I did was I screamed out, God, please help me. And I was able to gather myself up, and it was like 10 degrees outside. I ended up walking home because my car was on E. And went and told my mom, who was your grandma was a praying grandma. She was in there with all the lights on, me walking in there off a 5-day binge on drugs, telling her I need some help. She was like, well, we're going to do something about it. Went to treatment the next day, got introduced to this thing called recovery, because I
mhm,
have an addiction. Addiction is when you have a compulsion and you can't stop what you're doing, whether it be a people, a place, or thing. And the thing for me was the drugs, and I just couldn't stop. And I went to treatment, and they educated me on things I could do. It could get
mhm,
better, but you had to take certain steps to make it better. And so that's what I commenced to do. They introduced me to the 12-step program, which is like AA and NA. Is a 12-step program. It's a spiritual program based on recovery, where you learn from other people that have experienced the same things and done well. And that's what I commenced to do. And I can say, today I'm coming on 33 years of abstinence from drugs and alcohol.
mm,
I It's awesome. And
mhm,
the company that I worked for, I actually moved in one of the houses in 1988. I moved into the eighth house, this thing called Oxford House, where it's self-run, self-reliant housing for folks in recovery from drugs and alcohol. Where I lived with somebody that had a GED, somebody had their PhD, and an
mhm,
attorney. All kinds of folks from all walks of life. So it was sort of like a frat house, a fraternity house, and we helped each other and we supported one another. And I ended up working for them like a year later, traveling the whole nation, opening up Oxford houses. And today we got over 3,200 houses in 49 states and 7 different countries. And we have world conventions. And I've been featured on 60 Minutes and the
mhm,
Meredith Vieira show, and, spoke on Capitol Hill. And, it's just, got married during my recovery, had you in 1988.
mhm,
And you've been such a blessing for us because you believe in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, because you have to have some type of higher power that you believe in order to
mhm,
pull you out of anything that you're going through. You have to have something greater than yourself to believe in, to shoot for, to dream for, and so that's what I've been able to do. And it's my work is so rewarding because I help people help themselves. And then it's the work is so important because so many people, especially during this pandemic, it's been so rough
mhm,
because a lot of people been in this house for a long time. They scared to go out. There's a lot going on. You can't hold and touch, and all kinds of folks, man, and people getting
mhm,
depressed and all that. And we've been able to really help a lot of people in DC and around the country. And these type of segments you're having now is so important, to get the word out that you can get better. Whatever you're
mhm,
going through, you can get better. If you believe in a God of your understanding, and you surround yourself. One of the things I was blessed with, I surrounded myself with winners. I surrounded
mhm,
myself with people that wanted to accomplish something, that wanted to do the right thing. Just like when I was using the drugs, I surrounded myself with the people that had the drugs, knew how to use the drugs. That's why I ended up doing drugs.
Yeah.
But I turned that thing around. I flipped it around. The same energy and effort I put into using drugs, I put that into my recovery and helping people and help myself. And, and today I'm a prominent member of my community. My church, I run ministries at my church. I'm part of the Impact Retreat at my church, St. Martin's, and we touch a lot of lives down there. And as you know, during the holidays, we feed the homeless and go to the sick and shut in. And then every year for the last 20 something years, I've been playing old Saint Nick for the kids that, that underprivileged and just need a little help up, to see something that they can, kind of smile about. That's the biggest thing with me with being a Santa's helper, man, just to see the gleam in them children's eyes, man, when they see me, old chocolate Santa, right?
Mm.
Looking through my eyes and like,
Yeah.
Santa Claus, I love you. And
Yeah.
so it's been my life has been real rewarding because I've been able to bless a lot of people,
Yeah.
here and it's also around the country. And then I just want to say, I'm just so proud of you, man, the man you've becoming, and how you know Christ, and through him anything is possible. And if you don't have one, right, I want to say to everybody out there, if you don't have a higher power, you can use me and Cameron's because ours work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get chills every time I hear that story about your dad. I mean, I'm here to tell you today, like, you my hero. Like, you really a superhero. Like, everything I get is from you. And I just wanted to just kind of in closing on my last time, two questions for you. The first one being, if for those out there who are already going through an addiction right now, that need to hear this, what's their first step? Like, how can they help themselves? What's the first step to recovery?
The first step to recovery is really getting out of denial. A big part of the addiction is it causes you to close off people that care about you, and you're kind of in this space where you think you can come out by yourself. You gotta accept what you are. The biggest thing for me, I've been able to accept what I am. Everybody that knows Mark Anthony Spence knows I'm in recovery from drugs and alcohol, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of what I am because I've decided to do something about it. So basically it's acceptance. And I'm willing to help anybody out there that needs help. And so you can contact Cameron on this YouTube channel and, get my email address, and I'll help you walk through,
Yeah, I'll
whatever you're
drop it
going.
in the comment section below too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll help you walk, but it's really about acceptance. And then when you accept what you are, then you're able to move on from that space, right? But it's hard, it's difficult because the marijuana for y'all young folks, y'all, Generation X, y'all call yourself? What's your generation?
I guess generation something, next
Yeah, generation
generation. Yeah.
something, right? So
Yeah.
the marijuana is so prevalent, man, but marijuana is, it's a drug, and it's addictive. And and really using it a whole lot, it calls you to be shiftless and not want anything. You know what I mean? Just lazy. I mean, I don't know how many folks. It's numerous numbers I can't even count, man. And the amount of kids I've seen through your AAU days and your high school days and your college days that are willing to use drugs and think it's gonna be all right, man. As you remember, one of your coaches told you a long time ago, when you're 16 through 40, you need to work as hard as you can to get as much out of life and apply yourself and learn as much as you can. And then when you're 40 years old, you can take a look back and look at your successes. But a lot of kids, your age, they look at their successes are just like right in front of them. So you got to learn, you got to dream. And when you dream, you got to reach. Dreaming is about reaching. And anything is possible. Anything is possible in America, right? And with the support of your family and friends that are doing the right thing, anything is possible for you to accomplish.
Yeah. In closing, like my last question for you is, what advice would you give somebody who's pursuing what you're doing right now? Whether it be as far as just Oxford House helping people on their road to recovery as well around America, or just in general. What advice would you give somebody that's trying to pursue your profession?
First of all, you have to be a person in recovery in the 12-step
Mm-hmm.
program to do what I'm doing. Because I'm part of a spiritual program where it's about honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. Those are the things that I'm willing to do. Those are the sacrifices that I'm willing to make to help others, right? Being honest, being open-minded, and being willing, right? I can't, God can, so let him, And so if you got that type of inspiration where you want to better yourself and just give back in the little ways that you can, my type of work, because there's all type of opportunities in my field. You got counseling, you got rehab directors. I mean, you got so much stuff. It's unlimited. This profession that I'm in, because it also taps into the mental health piece too. People suffering from depression and bipolar disorder. It's so many facets you can go, but at the end of the day, you got to be able, if you can't take care of yourself and understand yourself, how you going to help somebody else? So it all starts with the individual first, and from there they can grow. And if you want more information, they obviously can, get my information from the chat, and we can walk through a lot of other things that is possible out there.
Well, Dad, I appreciate you for having you on once again, everybody. This is Mark Spence, my father.
Woo!
Thank you all for watching today. Y'all, God bless.
God